Today, my guest is Leanne Janzen, who is part of the team at FriesenPress. When the pandemic put her community center career on hold, Leanne pivoted into a new world, self-publishing. Today at FriesenPress, she leads a team that helps authors turn finished manuscripts into beautiful books. And she's passionate about educating writers before they sign any contract. Her mantra is, done is better than perfect. So, Leanne, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Let's start there. Could you explain why done is better than perfect and why this mindset is important to an author?
Yeah, so many creatives, authors included, never have that feeling of this is perfect. I can't make this any better. We see authors finish their books and then spend years going through them again and going through them again and going through them again and again and again. And in the world of art, you have to know when to stop. You have to know when you've gotten it as good as you can get it. And in lots of cases, especially when you're writing, that's not perfect. That's done. So to have it as done and as in great shape, as good a shape as you can get your work, to then move into your next steps and have an editor read it. That editor is going to see things that you will have missed because you've spent the last however many years so invested in that book. Your eyes alone aren't going to get it to that perfect stage. So done is better than perfect because you're never going to get it perfect on your own.
I absolutely agree with that. One of the best pieces of advice I have received about publishing is knowing when to quit, because once it goes before an editor, whether you're hiring the editor or the publishing house is hiring the editor, they're going to take it apart and you're going to have to fix things. And now, if you spent all that time editing and editing and editing,
Yeah.
it wasn't the best use of your time. So I think that is great advice.
Yeah.
There's so many challenges that authors face during the self-publishing process. I've spent the last few years learning about that myself, but I would like you to give me kind of an overview and also kind of explain where FriesenPress can come in and help with those things. So just give me like a case study. I'm a first-time author. I've come to you and I have finished my manuscript for the most part, and I'm ready to get started with the publishing process, but I don't know where to start.
The first challenge is knowing when you're ready to submit your manuscript to have an editor read it. So that's the first challenge. And sometimes that challenge is very hard to overcome. And at the end of the day, that challenge, overcoming it's very much on the author. It's to decide, okay, I am officially ready. Let's have an editor to look through this and help guide me on my next steps. In terms of challenges throughout the process, there are lots of challenges for authors throughout the process, and they range anywhere from, learning to go through the editing process itself, especially if you're a first-time author. Editing can be like a little bit like a writing boot camp. So going through the editing process with someone else just on its own can be a challenge. But the process itself, one of the biggest things that I've seen with authors is that shift from being the creator. So being that shift from I wrote this book, I've put my artistic, soul into this book, if it's something born out of artistry, into a sort of manager mode. You're going from something where you've spent your time, you've used the creative part of your mind to put this book together, and now the process shifts into more of a managerial, the editing, but you're managing the process. You're learning from square one what step comes next, what you have to do in terms of getting your cover designed, in terms of layout, in terms of what are the best avenues for distribution, and also then creating and executing your marketing. And so you really shift from creative to project to essentially project manager can be really difficult, especially for those that are a more creative type. Those, of course, who maybe wrote a business book, that shift might not be so hard. But more artistic, that shift in itself can be really difficult. But it truly is knowing which boxes to tick along the way during the process to know that once you get to that publication point, that point where you go, okay, I've done everything, that you haven't missed anything, right? You don't want to get
Right.
to that point of ready to hit publish on something and find out the bleed on your cover isn't correct. Or, like you want making sure all of those boxes along the way are ticked. Of course, there is also that this industry is so large and so small at the same time, but so large. And there's so much information out there. And so one of the biggest challenges, I would arguably say even the biggest challenge, is finding reputable, trustworthy information and reputable and trustworthy partners to work with throughout the process. So whether that is you're working with an agent that's going to help you query traditional publishers, whether that's you interviewing and vetting your own editors, your own designers, your own formatters, anyone who's going to help you with distribution, your book printers, if you're vetting and interviewing all those on your own, or if you're working with a service provider like FriesenPress, where it's more of a one-stop shop kind of thing. We have those editors, we have those designers, we have the illustrators, the formatters. We'll help you get your book in distribution. We'll get you your book orders. Regardless of what avenue you go, one of the hardest things is to make sure you're working with trustworthy, reputable industry professionals.
Years ago, in the first iteration of the Writing Biz, I had a guest on who's actually going to be a guest in a few weeks, Nina Amir. And Nina, at that time, we talked about creating a business plan for your book before you go to a publisher, because that way it kind of opens your eyes into what your needs are, what skills you have that you bring to the table that maybe you could take over this portion of the process, or something that you have neither knowledge to handle. And it's a really good way to get an understanding of what the path is and what you can do during that path, and what you need to do. So, like a lot of marketing, as we all know, it's up to the author. And you need to take time to build the platform, hopefully, as you're writing the book, so that you're ready for when your book comes out to give it some traction. But she has some great advice. And your advice is also right in line with them, because knowing what you need and knowing who to hire is a difficult thing for writers, because there are so many different service providers out there, some better than others, some more cost effective than others. It can be very confusing time for an author to figure out where to go and what to do.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right in all that. Is take the time to learn who the reputable people are and try to build a team. Unless you go into, a full service provider, but try to build a team that you can count on, that have a good reputation. They're going to give you good results. So that's wonderful advice.
Yeah. And I always say too, just to kind of expand on that a little bit, is when I'm talking to authors and I'm talking about, planning ahead, not only with looking at what skills you have, what skills you're able or willing to learn, and then finding folks to do the rest, but also looking at your budget. And when I talk about budget, I don't talk about it strictly in regards to money, because you're also looking at your time budget. When you're looking at budget, you have to look in the places that you're willing to spend more time, and those places will likely cost you less money. So when you're looking at each kind of part, editing, design, formatting, things like that, not only are you looking at, okay, well, how much money do I have to do this? You're also looking at how much do I have the time, or do I want to take the time to learn to do these things? You need to balance your budget of time and money when you're looking at those pieces.
No, I absolutely agree, because I had to do that before I started this podcast. I had to decide where I could find time to do that and what the value was at that time, because I knew I would handle all of the pieces of it myself, because I already do a podcast production for clients. It wasn't like I had to go out and learn from square one,
Right.
but I still had to take the time to build a system and all of that. And I think that a lot of times authors don't have that type of mental acuity, I think is what I mean, to where maybe that their life has not led them to gain knowledge in business, which is why I started the Writing Biz again, because it's very hard for somebody who is of a creative mind to build their system and to understand the business of writing. So that all ties into that as well. Now, I'm sure that working with new authors that don't have that background will be a bit of a challenge for you to put together what they need and to guide them on that journey.
Working with new authors, it can be tricky, because new authors often will come and say, I have no idea what I need.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It can be. It can be. And that's why it's so important to, when you're talking to service providers, that those service providers are able to help kind of guide you through, okay, you're not sure what you need. Let's look at what you've done already. So tell me what you've done, what has been done. Let's look at what your goals are. And then in between what's been done already and your goals, we're going to figure out what you need.
Right. I mean, it can be as simple as the difference in cover designers. Someone may be able to build you a cover design, but they may not necessarily understand what cover designs sell books.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to really think that through, because that's such an important piece of the whole publishing puzzle. Going to someone like FriesenPress or another hybrid publisher or self-publishing company, or even the big ones, they have cover designers that understand that better than you may find on, let's say, Facebook.
That's actually a really important distinction, is cover designers aren't your typical graphic designers. Cover designers are people who have a great knowledge of the book industry, understand the marketing that goes into a book cover, and recognizes what pieces are going to be most beneficial to your book's genre, your book's just visibility in the long run. You're not going to get that if you just pick up a graphic designer off the street. Someone who's well versed in book design, who's in it all of the time, that's going to be a game changer for you, definitely.
Well, my business is, I do web design and content writing and video production, a whole bunch of things. But one of the things that has made me successful over the last 20 plus years of having my business is my background in sales and marketing. So I can build a website with that understanding and put in the correct SEO and now GEO. I build it with that sales person mindset. And that is completely different from somebody who just says, oh, I will build you a pretty website. What can FriesenPress do? What services they provide? And what expectations could an author expect when contacting them and get involved with the company?
Yeah. And so FriesenPress, we're a full service provider for authors who are looking to self-publish. So we have a few services that you can work with us standalone, which means you can work with us with these couple of services without going through our entire publishing process. And that we can do standalone audiobooks. So if you've self-published your book elsewhere and you want to create an audiobook version, you can come and we can support you with that. We also do editing on a standalone or a la carte basis. Most of our authors do come through and publish with us, but we have the odd one that comes to us and we just support them with their editing. And then they go off and they query and they do their thing elsewhere. Every book that we work on, we start with a manuscript evaluation. So we have an editor read through the entire book, provide some starting points for metadata, so BISAC codes, search keywords, things like that. They're going to go through the book and they're going to talk about where it's really strong and talk about where it could potentially improve, and then give you an editorial recommendation from there. We provide developmental editing, content editing, copy, or lots of places call it line editing, and of course proofreading as well. So full suite of editing available. We've got a great team of vastly experienced editors. And another piece that we can do as well is we do offer book coaching as well. So authors or writers who only have an idea and might not know where to get started, or have half a book finished but they don't know how to finish it and they need some help with that. We also offer book coaching services as well. So those services you can do on their own. It doesn't require you to go through the whole process. For everybody else, we start with a manuscript evaluation. So that's, like I said, that's always the first step. And at the end of the day, every book should be professionally edited, no matter what. But at the end of the day, it is self-publishing. So we essentially have the ability to take your book from Word document on your computer all the way into distribution with books ordered and getting them to you in hand. So that looks like you come in, we look at, you have that consultation, and that consultation is done with someone on my team. So you have that consultation. We talk about what's been done to your book, what your goals are. We determine what you need. And once you've consulted with and we know what you need, we know what budget you're working with, we put together, a suite of services for you. And once you say, yes, that sounds great, let's go, we get you through. Everyone who works with us has a dedicated publishing specialist, which is essentially a project manager. So that's where I was talking about earlier. Some writers, that shift from creative to project manager can be a little tricky.
Right.
We take care of that for you. So you get essentially a project manager who's going to coordinate your editing for you, your cover design, your layout. They're going to support you through the revisions process. So if you get your layout back and you go, oh, can we add drop caps? And can we do this? And, this looks great, but can we move the picture to this part of the page? Or they're going to help you, guide you through that in making those requests for your designer. They're going to help you with your book pricing, get your book set up in distribution and make it available, and help you with your book orders as well.
Pretty much everything.
Yep. Right from, tip to tail. We got you. Yeah.
That's terrific, because it is overwhelming. And the other side of the spectrum is the person who says, oh, I'm going to self-publish this, and just sticks the book up on Amazon without going through any of the process. And then they're like, well, I don't sell any books.
Yeah. And that can be tricky too, because one thing that we do at FriesenPress as well is, while we don't outwardly promote or market the book for you, we do provide promotional and marketing coaching. And so we talk about how important for you to market your book. If you are looking for, you're not very versed in social media, we have promotional specialists who will help you set up your social media and coach you on how to keep using it. If you need a website, we've got our promotional specialists will help you set up your website, and then they'll coach and teach you how to maintain it. So we are actively, telling our authors how important it is for you to get out there, boots to the ground yourself. Because just like you just said, if you throw it up on Amazon, but you don't tell anybody it's there,
right,
nobody's going to know.
That's such an important piece of the puzzle. And it's, like I said, hopefully most authors start building their platform when they have an idea for a book instead of waiting until the last minute, because then you're literally like a year out because you don't have any marketing juice.
Yeah, marketing as early as possible, given what your personal abilities are able to do. Absolutely. Lots of our authors will not have social media to so as they're going through the process, we can help them start getting those things organized so that they can start to do those things. Or they have social media, but it's maybe not where their target market is found. So that's the other
Right.
important thing, is to make sure, if you're, trying to attract YA, not going to be on Facebook, because that's where people my age are, and I'm not YA. You're going to be looking at Instagram, probably. And so it's
Yeah.
important to where that target market is, and be visible there, and not just where you're comfortable. So, for example, if I wrote a book and it was a YA, I'd have to get real comfortable on Instagram and TikTok. But as it stands right now, my age bracket, and I don't want to age myself, but my age bracket is very comfortable on Facebook. But that's not where my target market would be if I wrote a young adult book.
Oh, absolutely. And understanding that's important. The other thing is to narrow it down. So if you have a personal Facebook account that you've only connected with
Correct.
family and friends, that isn't as much of a benefit as a Facebook account that is built around, let's say if you're a fantasy fiction author, belonging to the fantasy fiction communities, paying attention to other books, because the readers who want to read their books will want to read your book.
Correct.
And trying to make those connections, connecting with the other authors, connecting with the readers, connecting to people in the business, learning from it. It all works together, but it's hard to take a personal account and build it into a brand account. Sometimes it's better to start in the beginning.
It is. And it also
With that kind of,
depends a lot on, what are you branding? Are you branding the book, or are you branding yourself? So are you your
right,
brand, or are your books your brand?
right. I build websites for authors, and I usually tell them to brand themselves because they're probably not going to write just the one book
Correct.
or have just the one income stream.
Yeah.
So if they have a brand of themselves, it gives them a lot more flexibility with future projects.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's usually a big piece of it. But doing the marketing is really tough, and I obviously plan to spend a lot of time on that with the Writing Biz, because there's so many different pieces to it, and understanding those pieces, even if you're not doing all of it, maybe you're hiring somebody to help you to do the marketing, you have to be able to manage the person. So you do have to have some type of broad understanding of the different pieces and how they work to be able to do that. I hope people spend the time to learn that broad overview of everything, even working with a publishing company. It helps to have that broad knowledge, because then you can manage the publishing company's services and the people that are helping you. And it also helps you to not have to start from scratch in discussions with them. So you have a better handle of how things work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And I think one of the most important things for authors to know is that hitting publish isn't the end, it's the beginning. that's the
yeah,
that's a big
very good, right?
piece
Yeah.
where lots of authors think, okay, I've published, I've done it. And it's actually just the beginning, because now you're into your marketing and your promotion, and your boots are on the ground. And for a lot of authors, that can be, is going back to your first question, that can also be a really big challenge for some authors, because lots of authors will, describe themselves as introverts or introverted. So getting out there and talking about themselves and their book and doing book signings and things, that can seem like a really hard thing. And so getting through the process with the mindset that that's coming next is really important.
I agree. Sometimes it helps to find another local author and do events together if they're willing to do that, because maybe they have more experience, but also too, you don't feel like you're just there alone.
Right.
Which I'm an introvert extrovert.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have those introvert feelings as well, and I also have high anxiety, so that doesn't help at all. But if you, now, putting yourself in a more comfortable situation, getting to know the people at the venue you're at. So if it's a local bookstore, spend a lot of time there getting to know them so you do feel more comfortable. But that can be a difficult piece for a lot of people. It's also, too, one of the most valuable pieces in your marketing plan is that face-to-face interaction, whether you
Yeah.
do it locally with people or if you do it online. It's really a valuable piece because then they get to know you so much better as an author, that the reader becomes more of a fan and interested in your work and want to watch you moving forward, pay attention to what you're doing. Thank you so much. FriesenPress obviously has a lot to offer, and I really like that you break out services because sometimes that's what people need. And it's much easier for them to get through the process when they can make those changes. Like myself, I'm writing a fantasy series, and I plan to deal with a developmental editor because I think that will help me know what the value is of the product that I'm creating. I would do that before I approach any type of publishing because I want to make sure that the pieces are there, that it's worth going to a publisher. But I'm sure you run into that where people have already gone through the developmental. But I would not go through the full editing process because then if I go through a hybrid or independent or go to a big house publisher, you're going to tear it apart again. And I don't want to do that. But I do want to make sure the story's there, that the pacing's there, that all those pieces are what I think they are before I move forward. So that's my thought on it.
Yeah. And
Take it away.
I think that the very first thing to do once you are ready to enter that stage is do a manuscript evaluation. So, I mean, going into, a developmental edit blind can be sometimes unnecessary. So, having a professional editor read through your book as a starting point to give that recommendation, in lots of cases, especially with something that's a fantasy, in lots of cases, you're going to do some type of contextual edit anyways. But your book could be in much better shape than even you think. And so having that editor read through it as a starting point and say, okay, this is the type of editing I would recommend we do from here, could save you a lot of, you might pay for a full developmental edit and it might come back with very, very little, depending how sound your manuscript already is. So that a manuscript evaluation, whether you're working with a service provider or you're working with an editor, always make sure they read it in full so that they can give you that proper recommendation and they can be you and the editor can be on the same page going into that edit about what is being done and what needs to be done.
That's very good advice. I hadn't thought about that piece, to be honest with you. That's very good advice. That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
And I'm keep that in mind going forward.
Yeah.
Because you're right. You're right. That would probably break out the big pieces, and then you'll know exactly what you need to do.
Exactly.
So I like that. Great advice. Well, Leanne, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Writing Biz. I really love how passionate you are about helping writers in the writing business. I went through and researched you before I had you on as a guest. And that's one thing that I noticed consistently in everything that you've done is that passion. I think that's really valuable.
Thank you.
Certainly. You can learn more about FriesenPress at FriesenPress.com, and I'll share your socials in the show notes. To learn more about the podcast, visit thewritingbiz.com. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Sign up on the website to be the first to learn when new episodes are up and much more. I just did a whole redesign of my website, and the resources page has a tremendous amount of information, so check that out. And until next time, take what you've learned and put it to work in your writing biz. Thank you again, Leanne. This has been really valuable.
Thank you for having me.